Does anyone remember a time when you used to be able to celebrate immediately after the ball hit the net? Like that moment Aguero scored the winner against QPR in 2012, or Götze's decider in the World Cup final against Argentina. Now, let's paint a scenario. Instead of celebrating as soon as the ball crossed the line, you had to wait 2 to 3 minutes before confirmation arrived, while people that are miles away from the stadium are checking the whole play once again to see if there were any issues in the build-up. You're just there silently sitting on your couch, waiting with no news whatsoever about what's going on. Well, that pretty much sums up the current state of the game, what has been happening since the introduction of one of the most controversial machinery ever brought to light in this sport, the VAR. VAR is an abbreviation for Video Assistant Referee. It was born from an idea by the Royal Netherlands Football Association in 2010. At that time, the topic for modern tech in football had just been slightly touched on following a very controversial moment from earlier in the year. Our hero in this story, Frank Lampard, who at the time was representing England, saw himself denied a very clear goal against Germany during a match of the 2010 World Cup round of 16. The consequence would be the Three Lions elimination from the tournament with a heavy 4-1 defeat to the Germans. The goal in question, or non-goal, would have tied the game for England, and coming just shy of the 40th minute, who knows what might have happened. So the idea of introducing technology to help the referees began to make waves, among the shouts of corruption from many English fans. Fast forward 4 years and we would have the goal line technology. Wait 2 more years and in 2016, we saw the first real trial run for VAR in a match, a friendly between PSV and Eindhoven. The first international game in which it was employed was a match involving Italy and France, while the first professional club game arrived in the KNVB, the Dutch League Cup, with Ajax facing off against Willem II. The first time it was used in an international tournament was the 2017 Confederations Cup, and the first league worldwide to operate it was the Australian A-League. Football will be following the trail of other sports where instant replay was already being used, such as tennis, rugby, and cricket. When it was brought in, the general idea was for it to reduce controversial decisions and make the sport a bit more fair, just to generally improve the game. A very noble thought. It was sold to us that the most important thing was to increase the amount of correct calls made by the referee. But, and this is important, it was not supposed to replace the ref, just merely be there to guide it. Now, all this is fun and games, but it seems like the opposite has happened. There has never been more controversy than now. I feel like the original reason for VAR introduction has been slightly missed. It went from increasing the amount of right decisions to getting to that 0 error mark. Now, one doesn't exclude the other, but they are two different things. Increasing the amount of correct decisions is okay, but trying to make no wrong decisions is another huge situation. They're eradicating mistakes, almost dehumanizing the game. At the time it came into the league, it was conceived to reveal 4 general episodes in a match: yellow to red cards, offsides, fouls in build-up play, and mistaken identity, which probably a lot of people tend to forget, basically to avoid booking the wrong player, and a repeat of the whole Oxlade-Chamberlain and Gibbs red card fiasco. Funnily enough, the last major league to introduce VAR was England in 2019-2020. It was sold to us as this machine that was going to decrease refereeing mistakes and usher us into a new age of technology. But since its arrival in the top leagues, there have been numerous cases of referees being relegated, suspended, or leaving the organization entirely. Neil Swarbrick, the person who led the line in bringing VAR to the Premier League, has stepped down from his role, and on several occasions, the chief refereeing officer of the PGMOL, the association that governs the refs in England, has had to reach out to clubs due to a lapse in judgment by some of its members, with PGMOL also releasing statements after the games in case of a particularly bad blunder. We can ask Brighton, who has been on the receiving end of 3 of these apologies, more than most of the teams in any other league. I think a piece that's missing in this puzzle is the importance of the referee in all this. We have always, up until the introduction of modern technology, played to an unspoken rule. On the field of play, the word of the ref is absolute, good or bad decision it may be. You can debate about it, argue against it, find it a bad choice, but that's what has been said. Then came the revolution, the age of instant replay and slow motion. In comes this new machinery capable of deciding on its own whether or not the ball has crossed the line and therefore entered the net. Goal line technology arrived in 2014. It was adopted immediately by everybody, and to this day nobody debates about it. An unbiased source that can say with absolute precision whether or not a striker has cause for celebration or not. The same cannot be said for VAR, the screen that wants to doubt the referee. The famous hand signs made by the match officials when they had to review VAR that have become worldwide. This needed a bit more getting used to. In the major leagues, it started with Bundesliga and Serie A in 2017. The following year, it arrived in La Liga and Liga 1. Then in 2019, the English Premier League, the last to hold down the fort, conceded to have this piece of modern technology installed in their stadiums. Now, an information that is key in all this is that the VAR was conceived with the idea of helping the ref, not replacing it. There should be more tolerance for it to maybe look over all aspects of the game, instead of limiting it to only those 4 episodes. But I understand that would add a lot of time to the game and would probably convert to us having 15 to 20 minutes of added time per half. Another thing is that refs are slowly losing the grip on the game. They used to be a respected bunch of people. As I said, the refs' word on the field was unquestionable. But now each week, they're subjected to media bashing, pundits taking it out on them, players posting stories on their Instagrams, managers flying off the handle and publicly criticizing them. Since the introduction of VAR, refs have been made the scapegoats. Everything is their fault. Now, do I think they're never in the wrong? No, obviously not. I think they're at fault. They ruined my team several times. I'll even give a little personal story. Semi-finals of the 2018 Champions League. Roma were in them for the first time ever since the birth of this competition. They were on the wings of a historic comeback against Barcelona. First leg at Anfield against Liverpool, we get destroyed. It's a one-team show. Liverpool beat us 5-2. The return leg in Rome, we managed to get to 4-2. We just need one goal and send everything to extra time. Long ball gets into the Liverpool penalty area. El Shaarawy shoots, hits Alexander Arnold's arm, clear penalty. Well, actually maybe not super clear, but penalties for the same incident have been given before. Ref on the other side of the pitch doesn't see it. We narrowly come out defeated. So I'm not new to refereeing decisions going against my team. What I've noticed is that we find ourselves angrier than ever at refs. That is also due to the fact that they no longer apply the rules to the general context of the game, but they now do it strictly to the rule book. While this is the standard thing to do, a good referee is someone who understands the direction the game takes and makes decisions off the back of that. Not someone who just blows the whistle every time an infraction is made. Even worse in my opinion, refs are starting to pull out from making the big decisions in games, relying on VAR. This then goes on to prove the point that refs just basically do whatever the VAR room tells them. If so, moving forward, what becomes the point of the referee? The beauty was the fact that every decision the ref made was scrutinized by millions of people. They had to juggle that pressure, make the right calls at the right time. Then in came this technology that could review and double check every one of their calls based on available video evidence. Refs receive a lot of criticism and not enough praise. Doing a job like that is hard. Basically, whatever you do, there's always going to be someone unhappy with your decision, whichever one you make, even if it's the right one. People are going to be mad. But this does not take away the fact that they should be allowed to be the supreme commanders of the field again, with VAR intervening only in case of clear and obvious error. This way you give it less power, put the decisions back into the hands of the refs, and also waste less time. Because the way it is now, you're inviting them to put in less of an effort because who cares? There's VAR, am I right? This would then slowly cut down the amount of actual proper good referees, and it also makes anyone potentially interested in being one turn away. It's an awful lot to handle. Nowadays when a ref messes up, the ramifications are so much worse. In this age of digital media, everybody talks about it. You have pundits, managers, players, fans, all bashing the ref, when in truth, the mistakes remain the same, but it's just the consequences that are so much worse. It used to be a human being making these errors on the field. Now with all these checks and time loss, to still get the wrong decision just makes people mad. The idea with which VAR was brought in the lesson referees burden has been false. If anything, it has been defined flawed and inefficient. The concept which fails to pass is that refereeing is a very subjective matter. The decisions are taken with consideration of a lot of things, tons of variables influencing them. Now, I'm not sure where along the way we forgot about this. Unless there's a clear-cut foul or handball, there's no 100% right or 100% wrong answer. Fans have to accept that perfection in this sport cannot be attained. We can't get to a zero-error situation, because there's always a foul that looks like a 70-30 or a 50-50. This existed before VAR, and it most certainly exists now. So what's the difference? What changed since its introduction? Why was VAR brought in if fans now complain more than ever about these types of calls? Are we maybe just better off without it? But despite all this, the system has been dubbed very successful and refs have benefited from this technology, which I do admit. Players have become more disciplined, less arguments with the officials because they know that it's being reviewed. So no point in going to the referee. Diving has also been reduced. The thing is, people think that the mistakes made are overshadowing the good things done by it. That it has had its upsides, but the bad outweigh them, because the bad things make a lot more noise. Let's not forget another crucial part of this story. It's that VAR officials is not a type of job. These are actual referees that are used to running on the field, but instead have to go through the tedious job of reviewing images and checking frames. I feel like there should be actual VAR officials, like people that are only trained specifically for that, instead of refs relegated to watching the game from a monitor, because it kind of feels like a downgrade. Also, can we open a conversation about this for a second? Why does a potentially season-defining decision have to be made in a closed room thousands of miles away? Why can't it be made in the moment? I get that it balances out the sport, but it takes away a bit of that raw emotion associated with the game. Because let's face it, the errors VAR makes are actually not that many. It's just that when they do, people jump on them as soon as possible. Every little chance to criticize is good, so they're magnified. Let's say the percentages of correct decisions are 99%. That 1% is what everyone is going to talk about. Nobody ever says anything about how VAR actually reduced mistakes, or how it corrected decisions that were potentially going to change a game. Everybody focuses on the negative, because that's the problem for us. Why are mistakes made in the era of VAR? Well, the bad news I have is, this trend, unless something drastic happens, is not going to change. You can't say with 100% certainty if a foul is correct or not, if a penalty is deserved or undeserved. That's what makes the game beautiful. This inclusivity. Everyone can have their own opinion. However, a narrative is being forced by the general media that since the introduction of tech, refs are these people that can do no wrong because there are multiple screens helping them. From my personal experience, I've never seen any group of people agree 100% on any given episode in football regarding fouls. So how can you expect the referees to do so? It's not all black and white. Sometimes there's a little grey in there as well. Bear in mind, I'm only talking about fouls in this segment. Offsides are a completely different discussion. Now for that, there can be an objective decision, and some of the mistakes are really harsh. Because an assistant making an incorrect decision by himself is one thing, but then doing it after being helped by multiple screens is another. Some errors are viewed in a particularly bad way since they come after the match officials have reviewed VAR. Let's take a look at an example. Emirates Stadium. Arsenal are playing Brentford. They're winning 1-0. 3 crucial points in their bid to win the title. Norgard puts a ball in and Ivan Toney scores. The ref has a long look at the screen. The official in charge of the room, Lee Mason, does not draw the lines. Goal is given. With just a tiny problem. In the build-up, both Norgard and Toney were in an offside position. Arsenal ended up dropping points that game, going on to lose the title, and Lee Mason left PGMOL after 15 years as a professional referee. All these incidents with VAR highlight another factor, inconsistencies in how the rules are applied. Because every referee has their own way of viewing the game. Some prefer to be more lenient with cards, while others keep everything in check and use them a bit more. But this is less a debate on the technology and more on the individual level with the referees. However, one thing that we can attribute as a fault to this machinery is the state of the modern game. Football right now as a whole is so slow. It was not designed to be stop and start, with as little interruptions as it should have as little interruptions as possible. This all changed with the video assistant referee. Now, you can no longer celebrate a goal without having to wait minutes to see it given or taken away. A debate has been started on the pretense that this adds suspense, but I don't think so. I prefer to celebrate immediately. That's the beauty of it, being happy as soon as you see the ball hit the back of the net. So a cut in VAR times would be nice. There was already a lot of time wasted before. We don't need to add any more now. But this should change when the semi-automatic offside is introduced. Now that is something that should reduce timing. Spotting an offside immediately if there is one. No more of this manually drawing the line, since the striker running over the defense is a lot less subjective and a lot more to the book, with some extreme individual cases having to be considered. Football is losing a bit of its sparkle. With all the money that is circulating nowadays in the game, one wrong decision could be the difference between an EL spot and a place among the champions, which then is a huge amount of extra payroll that could be used. Clubs could, in a hypothetical future, attack federations suing them, demanding matches to be replayed, making the whole game go into complete chaos. One of the ideas that made the sport beautiful was when teams would push the boundaries of the rules, trying to gain a slight advantage in any way possible, bending them in their favor. Now with VAR, that doesn't happen anymore. This game is meant to be unpredictable. Anything can happen. The element of human error that is so intertwined into it. Actually, a funny thing that I found while doing research for this video was a suggestion by somebody to start using challenges, sort of like how volleyball does. So if one wrong call is made, the opponents can challenge the decision, allowing the ref to review again with more attention. Nowadays, after every goal, there's at least a minute and a half of checking potential situations, so a fan, instead of being happy for a goal scored, has to wait and let a screen decide their destiny. After its introduction, apart from the scurry of decisions that affected the game, players started playing to it, asking to review every episode. Assistant referees were told to wait until play finished before raising their flag, with the biggest problem being not the decisions that are revised, but the ones that aren't, creates so much more of a headache. Because the underlying opinion is, with VAR, how was this not spotted? FIFA are trying to implement this system everywhere, as there are still leagues that do not have this technology, like the Championship. But in the last few years, a debate has been raised on whether it should be scrapped entirely, on whether this project was a failure. Too much anger and controversy came with it. But we opened Pandora's box. How can we be asked to close it again? But one thing I've always found nice about this is the fact that when humans opened Pandora's box, all the spirits left except for one. The only entity that remained was hope. That's what I choose to have for this piece of tech. If we binned it entirely, let's face it, there would still be mistakes. Refs would still fall into wrong decisions, more than they do now. An effort should be made to streamline the process between VAR and the fans, allowing us to understand certain types of decisions that will really put a bit of accountability on the whole project. Kind of like how they're doing in the MLS. Because right now, allowing so many cameras and eyes on the pitch and still making the wrong call is infuriating, I admit. Especially since every time we have to hear shouts of corruption for every single mistake. Back then, all this was somehow held down by the fact that the ref had less to go by and was less at fault for not spotting something, so they got off the hook more easily. The bottom line is, it's really hard to make every fan happy. That is in part what makes the game beautiful. This diversity in opinions. Yet somehow, this is the trail we're trying to take. Make it as free of mistakes as possible. The game should be left to the ref, as it was before, and allow them the final say. Aided by VAR, sure, but not substituted by it. However, a willingness to improve the tech has been shown. They're trying to make things better. Until then, this is what we got. Hey guys, Midzala here. Thank you for watching. Just want to say a few quick words and thank everybody for the overwhelming support on the Dybala video. I'm really glad you all enjoyed it so much and supported it so much. I know maybe I'm posting a little less than I used to, but I'm trying to improve the process behind my videos and improve the quality. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave your thoughts down below. I make it a point of mine to try and read every comment. If you did not enjoy the video, please do tell me why. Anyways everyone, thanks for watching.